Welcome back to the Top Notch Documentaries YouTube channel. The case of missing 21-year-old Maura Murray is certainly a perplexing one. It was February 2004 and Maura went missing under extremely suspicious circumstances following confusing behaviour on her part. To this day, the case is still unsolved, and despite this case having been delved into and researched thoroughly with theories galore, nobody is closer to uncovering what went down on a bitter winter's evening. Here is the missing persons story of Maura Murray. Hope you enjoy. The best place to begin with this case is by covering the events which led up to Maura suddenly vanishing into thin air. It was February 9th of 2004, and just after 1 PM, Maura emailed her professor at UMass, where she had transferred and was currently studying to become a nurse just like her mother. The email mentioned that there had been a death in her family, and Maura was intended on leaving town for a week. This was a lie. There had not been any deaths in her family around this time. Maura had also emailed her boyfriend at the time telling him that she loved him and would call him later on, and she did call him an hour later. According to Maura's sister, the boyfriend had cheated on Maura and this had put a strain on the relationship. This news presumably fractured the relationship, and paired with the stress of school, this may have pushed Maura into a corner. She needed a break from it all, and this could be why she looked up MapQuest directions for Burlington, Vermont, Western Massachusetts, and Northern Connecticut. Maura finished on her computer and packed her belongings, including clothing, college textbooks, and birth control pills apparently. In the hours that followed, Maura withdrew all of her money. Maura then purchased alcohol, and not just a few bottles, her car was full of it. She had brought a box of red wine, Baileys, and wine coolers. Clearly, Maura was going through it, and alcohol was going to be her coping strategy for the next week that she was out of town. Maura set off from UMass having completed her errands and drove for roughly 3 hours and 45 minutes, heading north on Interstate 91, given its convenient route, out of the state of Massachusetts and into the state of New Hampshire. Maura probably stopped along the way for food or to use the restroom, as a recreation of the drive had left a time disparity of about an hour. The perplexing mystery as to what happened to Maura Murray seems to begin following this drive, as Maura exited the interstate and drove into the large village of Woodsville, New Hampshire. Something went wrong. It was winter time, and so the driving conditions weren't exactly ideal. Some have theorised that Maura was drink driving around this time, and some of the evidence supports this. What is confirmed is that Maura approached a bend in the road, lost control and hit a snowbank on Wild Ammonoosuc Road. A resident of Woodsville reported the crash, having heard the accident. This was at 7:27 PM. A bus driver who was driving by the accident scene stopped to assist Maura, who was described as not being visibly injured, but rather she looked cold and was shivering. He tried to assist her by calling for help, but Maura told him not to. She had phoned AAA and they were on their way. This was yet another lie, and phone service would have been difficult to obtain given the remote location. The bus driver decided to leave the scene for whatever reason, and police showed up at 7:46 PM. They were confused. There was a car that had obviously been in an accident, but no driver was in sight. Just where had this young woman gone? There is just a 7-minute time window where Maura could have gone missing, and this is equally as puzzling. Police investigated her car and it was locked, and the car presented signs of a typical accident. The airbags had been deployed, and damage to the front left headlight existed. Police gathered that from some of the car contents, like an empty alcohol bottle and the amount of alcohol in general, the driver had been drink driving. This combined with the windy roads and weather made for a deadly combination. The case would instantly become a major media sensation given the sudden and abrupt nature of Maura's disappearance. Maura was a successful student. She had what was described as an intoxicating smile. She was ultra competitive in school sports and was a role model to her siblings, especially toward her younger brother. Many began to theorise on the case, and her family were made targets of suspicion. Maura's father, Fred, was seen as being involved following his daughter's disappearance, and some say that he's hiding something. Maura's sister feels as though he's been mischaracterised by not only the media, but by an author named James Renner, who the Murray family feels is out for them. I don't really buy Fred being a suspect, just given the location of the disappearance. and I side more with the locals of Woodsville, who put forth a stranger abduction theory. The road where Maura was last seen is isolated, but cars were not rare, even at the time that Maura crashed. It is entirely plausible for a stranger to have come across Maura, offered her a ride, or just forcibly abducted her off the road. The opportunity and access to a victim is there, given the darkness shielding any opportunistic predator, and this case has eerie similarities to one that I've previously covered, the case of Brianna Maitland. My channel is focused on Israel Keys for the most part, and I believe that his name was thrown into the mix in this missing persons case. For once, we actually have a location for Israel, and he was not in New Hampshire. Israel was in Utah from the 6th through until the 13th. Therefore, unless he had done some sneaky moves by appearing in one place that he actually wasn't, it's highly unlikely that he was involved in Maura's disappearance. The strange part about Israel Keys though, is that he ended up in New Hampshire just 8 months after Maura went missing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he's tied into this case, but it is sketchy given that he appeared to return to destinations shortly following his murders. I believe that he did this with his New York victim in 2009, returning to destroy evidence in June, following the victim's murder in April. Anyway, before I end up in a rant, let's get back to the story. Maura's family took her disappearance hard. Her mother kept up her hopes that one day her daughter would finally show, but she never did. Maura Murray died of cancer some years later, with the unknowns of this case plaguing her up until she passed. Despite searches, little promising leads have been shared with the public, and the local police department in charge of the case are keeping their mouths shut. Some claim that there's been a police cover-up, and some argue that police messed up the case. Evidence for this could be the fact that one of Maura's sisters was not spoken to by police following her sister's disappearance. Could the police be trying to cover up the truth, or are they just trying to protect vital information that could lead to case progression from getting out there? Only time will tell, and with this case, anything is possible. The Murray family believe that it's highly unlikely that Maura left to start a new life, but why was she driving up in that region to begin with? Was she really heading north up to Vermont? Or was she intending on meeting up with someone? With little evidence of foul play, these answers may never be known. It's been many years since Maura was last seen, and her family deserves some answers. Closure for the family will never bring Maura back, but answers will enable them to better understand the situation and help them move one step forward toward peace. This has been the missing persons case of Maura Murray. As always, thank you for watching.